My name is Mr. Redrick. I am a teacher and representative of Cornerstone Schools in Detroit, under the leadership of our CEO, Ms. Sanders, and our founder, Mr. Clark Durant. I would like to thank all of you for being here today, especially our supportive parents, and let's give a round for our visionary, Judge Warren. Thank you, Mr. Warren. On September 17, 1787, our founding fathers met for 3 months to create the United States Constitution. This short presentation deals with the ideas that came out of the U.S. Constitution. I present the Cornerstone School Performance of Excellence, We the People.
Delegates, please take your seats. Come to order. We are here to amend the Articles of Confederation. They have proved too weak as a basic law for our continued independence. I recommend that you abandon the idea of amending the Articles of Confederation and write a completely new document instead. Write a constitution with a strong central government. Will leave the states with some power to control their own affairs.
The question is, shall we have one nation or 13 nations? Shall we have increased power in the central government or leave most power in the states?
I propose that we create a new Congress and that the new Congress should be able to overrule any law passed by the state governments. Why are we here, gentlemen? We are here because each state is like a separate nation. Remember, each state ratifies separately the peace treaty with Great Britain.
What difference does that make? We are at peace, aren't we?
It makes a lot of difference. If that continues, France, Great Britain, and even Spain will figure out how weak each other's states are when they stand alone. Georgia will soon become part of Spain, New Hampshire, part of Quebec, and so on, until each of the states are swallowed up and independence is lost.
Yes, you guys have a strong central government, but we must allow the states to have some power over things that are local in nature.
Yes, that is important. A strong central government, but with each state still retaining some power.
I agree that we should have a strong central government. Let's do away with all the states together.
The states must be preserved. The central government should be limited with some specific powers.
But what powers should they be?
Defense against foreign attacks, treaties with other countries, and defense against uprisings in the United States and all other nations. The states should govern themselves.
The central government must have more power.
I agree. The central government must have more power. We are now the laughingstock of Europe. And if this present government continues, by the year 1800, we'll be back under the control of Great Britain or France, or maybe even Spain.
But the power of the states will be gone. You have also proposed to tax the people directly from the central government. What do you call this new form of government? It is a federal form of government. Power is divided among the states and the central government.
Yes, that's the way it should be under our present system. The states have all the power and the central government has very little.
Again, let us proceed on a new topic. The relationship between the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary.
Mr. Chairman,
The delegate from New York is recognized and has the floor.
I think our chief executive should be king. This is the only way to have an efficient government. We should adopt a monarchy, just like England.
This is nonsense! We fought a war to eliminate King George III. We should have no titles of nobility of any kind.
I agree with
No king.
But the executive, legislature, and judiciary should all be separate and independent of each other.
The legislature should be the first branch. It alone should be responsible for making the laws.
And the executive should carry out and enforce the laws.
and the judiciary will interpret the laws.
By separating the powers of the legislature, executive, and the judiciary, that will reduce the power of the executive.
That is true, and that
is the way it should be.
Yes, and each branch should be able to limit the power of each of the other branches.
A government with balanced power, power balanced among the executive, legislature, and judiciary.
Power of three branches should be separated.
Just like in Virginia, separation of powers works well in Virginia. It will work well in the national government too.
And the chief executive should be elected by the people.
But the people will not be familiar with the candidate. We should vote for the local people.
Then they could vote for president.
Yes.
Now, Franklin, you know more about lightning rods than you do politics. The legislature should vote for president.
A president elected by the people will survive the test of time. State legislators seldom express the wills of farmers, craftspeople, and shopkeepers.
The people should vote for electors. Then they can vote for president. I agree with both Franklin and Morris.
Under the Virginia resolution, it is proposed that the legislature will be elected by the people. The representatives will make the laws.
The state legislature must be elected by the people. No government can last without the support of the people. The state legislature should not elect the representatives for our national government.
If the people elected the national legislature, they will have more respect for it. I suggest that each representative be based on the number of people living in a state.
The more people who live in a state, the greater number of representatives.
This will reduce states with small populations to nothing. Each state should receive the same number of votes in the legislature.
I agree emphatically. It should be no other way. Each state should have the same number of votes in the legislature. Or Connecticut will have to withdraw from this convention.
Without equal representation, the small states can form their own government and the large states can form theirs.
We can solve this problem with the two-house legislature. One can represent the people, and the other can represent the states.
I agree. A two-house legislature could work. One house could represent the people, and the other could represent the states.
This would be a good compromise. No, this would be a great compromise.
I would like to make this proposal to the convention, that the House of Representatives be based on population and that the Senate have an equal number of representatives from each state.
The delegate from Massachusetts is right. This is a great compromise. I believe most of the delegates can support this.
George Washington, what do you think of a two-house legislature?
It's like you once said, when a friend of yours asks why you pour coffee from your cup into your saucer, your answer, to cool it. And that is why we need a two-house legislature, to cool the actions of the other house. You see, we pour legislation from the House of Representatives cup into the senatorial saucer to cool it. I like two houses of Congress.
Let's have a toast. May we always drink coffee from the cup that has a saucer, and may we have a two-house legislature.
If one house of legislature is to be based on population, we must decide how to count the inhabitants of each state.
What do you mean? Count each free person. Best representation on free citizens, nothing else.
Slaves as well as free people should all be counted.
If slaves are to be counted for representation, they should be counted for taxation. Each state should be taxed in the proportion to its population. Your system of counting will give too much power to Virginia. Virginia has a large population of free people and slaves. Slaves should not be counted.
This problem must be solved. We need to find a way to count slaves for the purpose of determining the number of representatives from each state.
I propose that each slave be counted as 3/5 of a person. For example, say you have 5 slaves. They will be counted as 3 free citizens.
By counting any slaves of population, we are encouraging their importation. It is inconsistent with the principles of the Revolution and dishonorable to the American character to have slavery in our Constitution.
Virginia and Maryland have already forbidden the importation of slaves, and other southern states may follow that lead someday, but they will not agree to it now.
Remember, the slave trade was begun by greedy British merchants, and now our New England ships, owned by upright New England merchants, grow wealthy on this terrible trade.
Now, while we have been meeting here, Congress in New York has made new laws covering the admission of the new states in the Northwest Territory. Slavery has been forbidden there.
Another compromise. I propose that the importation of slaves be not prohibited for 20 years, or 1808, and that a tax be placed on each slave imported equal to the other import taxes. And as Dr. Franklin suggested, we count slaves as 3/5 of a person.
And the voters in each state should vote for the members of the United States House of Representatives. From their state, each state should have at least one representative.
And for every 40,000 people, one additional representative. This will give the states the greatest population, more power to the House of Representatives.
But in the United States Senate, each state should have 2 United States senators, elected by the state's legislature. The people will not vote directly for the state senate. The small states will have as much equal power as the large states do in the United States Senate.
We have 2 good compromises. Count 3/5 of slaves plus all free citizens as a basic of representation for the House of Representatives.
And have a 2 House legislator.
And have a president who is elected separately from either branch.
And have a Supreme Court appointed by the president with the advice and consent of the Senate.
Separation of powers among the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary.
And a division of power among the states and the central government.
This will be a federal government. If a conflict occurs between the states and the national government, the states must yield. I pray that the states ratify this Constitution.
We should have a Bill of Rights, guaranteeing a citizen's freedom.
I confess that there are several parts of this Constitution which I do not at present approve. But the older I grow, the more apt I am to doubt my own judgment, but to pay more respect to the judgment of others. I agree to this Constitution with all its faults, if they are such, because I believe a general government necessary for us. I doubt too whether any other convention we can obtain may be able to make this Constitution a better one. However, gentlemen, I propose that we adopt this Constitution as the Constitution of these United States. We the people
of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of every